What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. As always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Hope you're all having a phenomenal weekend, and your Sunday, February 1st is a good one. The breaking news that we're getting into here on today's show: the 49ers have hired their new defensive coordinator. It is not going to be Gus Bradley who's replacing Robert Saleh. It is not going to be Jim Schwartz. The Niners are hiring Raheem Morris to replace Robert Saleh. Before we dive into that, anytime there is breaking Niners news, I always have you covered. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button as we're closing in on 200,000 subscribers here on the show. Also, don't forget to give me a follow on social media. I'm on X, Instagram, TikTok at Chase_Senior. And I will be in the Bay Area all throughout this week for our coverage of Super Bowl 60, doing shows from Radio Row. You got to be on the lookout for that phenomenal coverage because I'll be bringing the heat right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. So Adam Schefter breaking the news just moments ago. ESPN sources: the Niners are set to hire former Falcons head coach Raheem Morris as their new defensive coordinator. Morris is expected to replace Robert Saleh, who was hired, of course, by the Tennessee Titans to be their next head coach. And it was no coincidence that this move happened when it did. Raheem Morris, even though he was canned by the Atlanta Falcons after 2 seasons as their new head coach, and Kevin Stefanski was then hired to replace him, he was still in the running for another head coaching job with the Arizona Cardinals inside the NFC West. He was a finalist for that job, but a couple of dominoes fell today. Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, who used to coach under Kyle Shanahan with the Niners, is expected to be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have the number 1 overall pick. Fernando Mendoza is expected to be that top selection for Las Vegas, a good scheme fit for Clint Kubiak. That move and news cannot be official until after the Super Bowl. We saw a similar situation last year with Kellen Moore, pretty much had that wink and handshake deal to take the head coaching job for the New Orleans Saints. He declined questions all throughout the week, but of course, after the Super Bowl, it was made official that he was going to be the head coach of the Saints to replace Dennis Allen. And this is the exact same situation. A team that is in the Super Bowl. He's the coordinator for that offense. He is still under contract with Seattle, and he can't officially take that head coaching job with Las Vegas. But after interviewing yesterday with both Arizona and the Raiders, he hit it off with part owner Tom Brady. He likes the Raiders situation. Kubiak's going to Las Vegas. Kubiak was also a finalist for the Cardinals job. The Cardinals are hiring Mike LaFleur, the Rams offensive coordinator, the brother of Matt LaFleur. So that means Raheem Morris will not be the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and now he gets to reunite and team back up with one of his best friends in head coach Kyle Shanahan to replace Robert Saleh. And when Robert Saleh took that job with the Titans, I had said, my favorite candidates to take this gig: Brian Flores, number 1. He went back to the Vikings. Jim Schwartz, number 2. He's still under contract with the Browns, but got passed up for that head coaching job by Todd Monken. I think he's going to be a coaching free agent and maybe go somewhere to be a DC. The Philadelphia Eagles are showing interest in him if Vic Fangio does decide to retire, because he's contemplating that. And then Raheem Morris was one of my other favorites to take this job for San Francisco. He was the Rams defensive coordinator for his close friend Sean McVay, and now will be the Niners defensive coordinator for his other really good friend and head coach Kyle Shanahan. And their relation goes back so many years. And what's interesting, Shanahan and Morris have been together for 3 separate stops already. This will be their 4th time together. So they reunited now, but they were with one another in Tampa Bay 2004, 2005, with the Washington Redskins at the time before they became the Commanders 2012, 2013, with Atlanta as well 2015, 2016, when Shanahan was the OC under Dan Quinn, and now Shanahan, of course, the head coach of the Niners since 2017, after that Atlanta stint, and now for a 4th time, Raheem Morris and Kyle Shanahan will be coaching alongside one another. And the history goes back many, many years, as I had noted, when Kyle was working for his dad, Mike. He wanted Mike to hire Raheem Morris onto the staff. Kyle Shanahan was actually arrested in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine all the way back in 2005 for defending Raheem Morris when he was unfairly treated by some police officers in the city of Indianapolis. And Raheem Morris has a long history, right? Buccaneers head coach, 2009, 2011. He's been an assistant head coach multiple places, a defensive coordinator for a couple of teams. He was the Rams DC from 2021 to 2023 when the Rams won that Super Bowl. So Shanahan has familiarity with him from that tenure as well. And then, of course, the last 2 years, he was the Falcons head coach. And it didn't work out for him. I'm not surprised that he got fired by Arthur Blank in Atlanta. But I thought there was a chance that maybe Atlanta was going to keep him for another year because the Falcons did end the season playing pretty well, but they went in a new direction with Kevin Stefanski. Pretty much, I like this hiring for San Francisco. I did not want them to promote Gus Bradley. To me, Gus Bradley would have been such a vanilla, boring, meh type of hire. And I understand that the origins of the Niners defense were started by Gus Bradley when he was the defensive coordinator for those great Legion of Boom defenses with the Seattle Seahawks. He goes to Jacksonville, where he actually hired Robert Saleh as his linebackers coach. Those defenses with the Jags were pretty good. He just didn't work out as a head coach. He went to the Chargers after that. He was a solid DC, but toward the end of his tenure, it didn't work out with the Chargers. Then he goes to the Raiders. He's their defensive coordinator. He got fired there. And then before coming to the Niners as the assistant head coach of the defense under Saleh, who's very close with, he got fired by the Indianapolis Colts. So Gus Bradley, I know that he handled red zone duties for this Niners defense this past year. And the Niners fared very well in the red zone, very well respected and appreciated by the players on this Niners team. Some of them advocated for Bradley potentially to be the DC to replace Robert Saleh. I just don't think that would have been a move that moved the needle a lot for this Niners defense. And I think it would have been a hire that was a low upside, low floor type of hiring for San Francisco. But when you hire Raheem Morris, he's just a better candidate and a better defensive coordinator than Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley had an inability to adapt and evolve with what offenses are doing these days across the National Football League. Robert Saleh has had an innate ability and a great ability to adapt and evolve with what we see modern day from some of these offenses. And Raheem Morris has been able to do that throughout his coaching career as well. So Raheem Morris is 49 years old, extensive coaching background. He started coaching in the NFL all the way back in 2002. He left to be the Kansas State defensive coordinator in 2006. He's been in the NFL since then. So very long time. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion. In the early 2000s, he was on that John Gruden staff that won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Gruden got traded by the Raiders to the Buccaneers to take over for Tony Dungy. And then he won a Super Bowl again as the DC in replacing Brandon Staley with the Rams in 2021. And as far as the defensive philosophy for Raheem Morris, his roots trace back to the Tampa 2 defense. 4-3 alignment, cover 2 variant, deep middle drop from the linebacker. Fred Warner's going to have a field day doing that. And that Tampa 2 influenced Raheem Morris in leaning and preferring zone coverage. The thing with Jim Schwartz, I thought that he would have been a better candidate than Raheem Morris, and it would have made sense, right? Jim Schwartz could have run the 4-3, which the Niners will continue to run. Jim Schwartz would have continued to run the wide 9, which is what Kyle Shanahan prefers, because Jim Schwartz influenced him into wanting to run the wide 9 when Shanahan was going up against Schwartz, when Shanahan was a young offensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz would have been able to inherit Chris Kocurek as his defensive line coach, because Kocurek was the D-line coach for Jim Schwartz when Schwartz was the head coach for the Detroit Lions. But on the back end, Schwartz had the Browns playing man at the number 1 rate in the NFL this past year. The Niners were 23rd. The Niners and Kyle Shanahan preferred to run zone defense on the back end. Well, Raheem Morris likes to run a zone defense on the back end. So if you ran man, you'd have to make a lot of personnel changes, and it would be a big adjustment. Now with Raheem Morris, you'll make some adjustments, of course, And I'm not against upgrading personnel, especially at corner, safety, and the linebackers around Fred Warner. But if you stay more so with zone, it just makes that transition from one defensive coordinator to another pretty easy. What I also really love about Raheem Morris, which we haven't seen from Gus Bradley, Morris has shown an ability to adapt his scheme over time. So he started off with those Tampa 2 roots, such a famous defense for such a long time. And it was Lane Kiffin's dad, Monty Kiffin, who also made that defense famous in the early 2000s. But with the Rams, Brandon Staley was the Rams DC, but then he took that Chargers head coaching job starting in 2021. That's when Raheem Morris took over after that COVID season. Brandon Staley is a Vic Fangio disciple. Vic Fangio runs more of like a hybrid 3-4. And so with the Rams, what did Raheem Morris have to do? He adapted to the personnel on the roster. And he adapted a more Vic Fangio influenced system because of Brandon Staley and what he was running. And Fangio prefers lighter boxes, 2 high safeties to limit explosive plays, and he doesn't like to blitz a whole ton. And so that's what I really like about Raheem Morris, and that's what Robert Saleh has done such a great job of. And that's why Saleh had this defense playing so much better as compared to Nick Sorensen in 2024. It's the ability to adapt, evolve, but also make in-game and in-season adjustments. And I think Bradley, as he's gotten older, and that Legion of Boom defense, that scheme has become a little bit more outdated. Raheem Morris, Robert Saleh, the great DCs, especially a guy like Vic Fangio, who's in his late 60s, they've been able to really be malleable with their defensive approach. And that's what you have to do as a great coach. So Raheem Morris to the Niners here. I really like this move for San Francisco. I really like how Morris is able to communicate and bring energy as a coach. He's very well respected all across the NFL. And when you combine the communication skills, the leadership, which is what Saleh had, with the defensive acumen and the defensive experience, it's just a hiring that Niner fans have to really like as compared to Gus Bradley, which would have been a flatliner type of hiring. So no notes here, just ripping some thoughts off the dome. Breaking news, instant reaction video, Raheem Morris, hired by the Niners to be their new defensive coordinator. I'm going to give this hiring an A grade for Kyle Shanahan. And I do think that this defense is in a really good spot moving forward. You're going to get Nick Bosa back. You're going to get Mykel Williams back. You're going to have Fred Warner back. Continued growth from Alfred Collins, CJ West. You have a really good corner in Diamador Lenore. Renardo Green has some ability. Can Raheem Morris maximize him? I still think you need to get better at linebacker alongside Fred Warner, and you need a coverage safety to pair up with a guy like Malik Mustafa, who's better downhill against the run and around the box. But you check off some of those boxes and you fulfill some of those needs. And I think the potential for this Niners defense is really high in 2026. And I actually think on offense, the Niners have more question marks than they do on defense going into this upcoming season. All right, my name is Chase Senior. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. Don't forget to hit that sub button. Give me a follow on social media, X, Instagram, TikTok, at Chase_Senior. I'll be in the Bay all throughout this week for our coverage of Super Bowl 60. We've got an event in San Jose for our Raiders channel that I'll be taking a part of as well. Niner fans can pull up. I'll give you that information a little bit later in the week as well. Get your Dub City gear, get your F Seattle gear, and I'll catch you soon here on the show.